Anthropology in Business, Taking Your Business Global by Megan Esteban, Demetrius Pulley, and Francine Richardson. What is anthropology? There are four fields of anthropology. In cultural anthropology, they study the cultures and societies of human beings in their very recent past. Traditional cultural anthropologists study living cultures and present their observations in ethnography. In archaeology, they study the past societies and their cultures, especially the material remains of the past, such as tools, food remains, and places where people lived. Linguistic anthropology is the study of language, especially how language is structured, evolution of language, and the social and cultural context for language. In physical anthropology, which is also called biological anthropology, it's the study of human evolution and variation, both past and current. Anthropologists in business. Why should businesses hire anthropologists? The answer is quite genius, actually. While the typical marketing executive is good at crunching numbers or coming up with a catchy slogan, anthropologists' specialties are the people themselves and the culture that they are a part of. Anthropologists see that people are people, while businesses see them as customers, or more importantly, money. By keeping the person in mind, anthropologists have a deeper connection and are able to immerse themselves into whatever culture that they are needed to. They can learn the ins and outs of the target market that the business has chosen. Anthropologists will have the inside scoop on what the target market wants and likes. Marketing strategies, international business. If a business masters their local market in their own country, sometimes they want to expand into other countries. Hiring an anthropologist to help you make your decision about taking your company internationally would be a very smart idea. Businesses first need to ask themselves, is our company ready for international business? Picking which countries you wish to market your product to is the most important question of all. Will your product or service sell in this target market? Is it something that this country and their people need or even want? Areas that do not have their basic necessities to live will have no use for luxury items like high fashion clothing, cell phones, or jewelry. Or maybe your product is just not a good fit for their culture. A company must also make sure that their business will have a shot at thriving in another country before risking money and time to market there. They have to make sure that they are welcome to their culture and that they can get all their supplies needed to manufacture and sell their product. Taking your business internationally is no easy decision. There's a lot to think about. Selling your product or service in another country definitely has its pros and cons. On the plus side, you will broaden your company's horizons by expanding to other countries. More people will recognize and know your product or service. What seems most important to most companies is that your sales could increase. You have to take into account that the costs of expanding and advertising are expensive. Your company could have less competition. Having a greater global market share will drive away your competitors. Having your business in more than one market can also make you less vulnerable to changing market trends. If your product becomes less popular or has dragging sales in one market, you can pick up the slack in your other market shares in other countries. There are also many cons to internationally selling your product or service. If you're going to expand to another country, it will take a lot of time if you want to do it correctly. There is so much to learn and to take into consideration when deciding where your new market will be. You have to be comfortable with the language and culture of the other country, or be prepared to hire people to do that for you. Language can be translated, but understanding the deep cultural values and norms is what's most important to make or break your product. You will also have to understand what your target market can afford so you know what to charge. It may not be worth expanding if they cannot afford much, or if it costs too much for you to make the product. You must also be very aware of local politics and laws. If there are wars happening in that country, or if the government could seize your assets with no warning, maybe that's not the right country for you to start a business in. A company must also look at the current market share of that country to understand if they can fit into it. If there is no room in the market or no need for their company, then expanding your company would be useless. Marketing strategies, advertising. Once your company has picked the country it wishes to expand to, you must begin to think of the advertising campaigns. The advertisement or even your logo or brand name is very important to the success of your business. You must understand the culture of this country, what they like, dislike, hold sacred, or what they find to be rude. If you're a restaurant, you need to provide food that is similar to what this culture already consumes. McDonald's has been very successful at tailoring their menus to the culture and country it is in. This is a picture of the food that is available in McDonald's in India. Most of their people do not eat cow or any meat at all, so McDonald's normal menu would not have worked for this culture. Your company must understand the language of the country and make sure that all words are translatable and make sense. Symbols and pictures also speak a great deal with no words being used. Whatever symbol or words put on an advertisement must be easily understood by the locals. If they do not understand it, or if it does not convey the message you are trying to put out, your advertisement will not be successful. The most important part of your advertisement process is to make sure that you receive feedback from someone who understands the local culture and language, because bad advertising could ruin your company.
Human resources, communication. In global businesses, companies must be adept at bridging the gaps between languages and cultures in order to build a successful market. These bridges come in many forms such as communication, strategies, cultivating a sense of company unity across geographic and cultural borders to maintain the most valuable company-customer relation. Understanding cross-cultural communication is important for any company that has a diverse workforce or plans of conducting a global business. Business organizations require effective communication in order to operate efficiently and meet their objectives. International business organizations require effective communication at a number of levels. The company must communicate with its workforce, customers, suppliers, and host government officials. This type of communication involves an understanding of how people from different cultures speak, communicate, and perceive the world around them. Communication across cultures can be confusing and uncertain. Miscommunication is inevitable, especially where there are significant cultural differences between people. Practicing these strategies will prevent misunderstandings and assist with communicating effectively to create strong cross-cultural relationships. Some of the strategies are: slow down and speak clearly to ensure your pronunciation is intelligible. Separate questions and let your listener answer one question at a time. Avoid negative questions or statements. Many misunderstandings have been caused by the use of double negatives or asking two questions in the same sentence. Take turns while talking. Make your point and listen to the response. Write it down. If you are unsure whether something has been understood, write it down and get confirmation. Being supportive and encouraging others provides confidence, support, and a level of trust between you and your customer. Check meanings and never assume that the other party has understood. Be an active listener. Avoid slang and idioms. These words or phrases are unique to individual cultures and not always interpreted correctly. Avoid humor. What is funny in one culture may not be in another. Maintain etiquette and be professional and courteous at all times. Communication obstacles. Effective communication with people of different cultures is especially challenging. Communication takes place in two ways. Number one, verbally, by using words that have mutual understood meanings. The most common cross-cultural barrier in business communication is language. When languages are different and translation has to be used to communicate, the potential for misunderstanding increases. The same words can mean different things to people from different cultures, even when they speak the same language. International business, like any business, must be grounded in trust and mutual respect. If you want to communicate effectively in international business, there is no substitute for the hard work it takes to learn the native language. Having proficiency in a second language enables the international business person to understand the communication patterns with their proper cultural context, as well as increase general rapport with foreign business counterparts. Secondly, is through nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is conveyed through body movements, facial expressions, and the physical distance between the sender and receiver. Every culture has a different set of values and acceptable behavior. It is important to understand these differences to show genuine respect. Let's talk about body posture. The way that people hold their bodies frequently communicates information about their social status, religious practices, sexual intentions, and desires to maintain social distance. When people are interacting in a cross-cultural environment, sharp differences can be seen in terms of which postures are taken and what meanings they express. For example, in the United States, we stand up to show respect. However, in some Polynesian cultures, people sit down. We frequently lean back in our chairs and put our feet on our desk to convey a relaxed, informal attitude. But Germans would think that action is rude. For many people, squatting is a position for relaxing, yet for the typical American, it seems unsophisticated. Let's not forget, actions speak louder than words. Anthropologists are scientists who study the development and behaviors of human beings throughout the world to help better understand humanity as a whole. They may research human interactions for government agencies, corporations, and nonprofits, using their skills to study trends in poverty, disease, and overpopulation. Applied anthropologists may apply theory to solve current problems such as urban planning and access to healthcare. A master's or doctoral degree is typically required depending on what subfield is studied. The education necessary can be lengthy and diverse, but the sky's the limit with a degree in anthropology. Anthropologists can be found in corporations, all levels of government, educational institutions, and nonprofit associations. Anthropologists can also serve as cross-cultural trainers for U.S. companies taking their business global. Why is cross-cultural training important? The goal of cross-cultural training is to equip employees with knowledge, skills, and a positive attitude. Possessing a positive attitude toward cultural competence is a necessity. A positive attitude can lead to greater enjoyment in cross-cultural interactions by improving self-confidence, reducing stress, and decreasing the use of stereotypes. Secondly, knowledge is needed. To be culturally sensitive, it is important for employees to understand what it takes to be an effective member of specific cultures. The employees must also have awareness of their own culture and communication styles. Finally, assuring employees have the skills to be professional and build relationships in any cultural setting. Awareness, knowledge, and skills are all needed to develop effective cross-cultural interactions. If these components are not obtained, there is likely to be failure. Overall, cross-cultural training increases job performance and reduces ambiguity that can lead to cultural shock. Culture shock. What is it? Many people experience culture shock in their everyday lives, but to have a clear understanding, you must first understand what culture is. Culture is the beliefs or different social groups and may be displayed by their art, customs, or daily rituals. Some examples of these cultural practices are social institutions or religious practices. What is culture shock? Culture shock can be described in many ways, but I like to think of it as that discomfort feeling you get or that light bulb in your head that informs you things are completely different than what I'm used to when experiencing new places or things. Some examples of culture shock would be traveling to a new place or even getting a new job. Business and culture shock. A person can experience culture shock in their business or everyday life. Many people experience culture shock throughout their lifetime or just engaging in different activities or life changing situations, such as someone going to college or experiencing a new religion. Cultural shock can also have a huge effect on business, being that a job could ask for different demands than what you are used to. Or maybe the jobs require you to travel to different places where you experience different ways of living. Many of businesses require teamwork skills and networking abilities, and one has to be sure to suspend judgment of one's belief, attitude, and culture while doing so. Sometimes experiencing culture shock can cause stress due to the different sets of demands or change in schedule. The best way to manage this stress or anxiety when experiencing culture shock is to prepare and plan ahead for situations. How to overcome culture shock. To overcome culture shock, you have to identify the problem, which is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is the act of judging a person's society or culture without having a clear understanding. A person may think that they are above another person due to the different cultural beliefs that they have. People experience ethnocentrism daily when encountering a different culture. People have become so accustomed to their own culture, they believe it is the only way of life. I have realized that cultural relativism is the best approach when reviewing a culture. Cultural relativism is the perspective in which an individual's personal beliefs should be understood. To have respect for another person's society or culture and suspend your personal thoughts and judgment. Sometimes having a clear understanding of another culture will allow you to see common similarities between the two.